I feel that the treatment of Alabama, the delegates to the Democratic Convention, was a shameful and terrible way to treat the people of Alabama. It was wrong of the Democrat Party to not seat the delegates from Alabama. It was wrong to require them to sign a loyalty oath. This is a free country. We are not demanded of, but we are asked to cooperate and work with. Now, at the Republican Convention, we had similar problem. There were some people from New York, Senator Kenneth Keating, for instance, that stated that he wouldn't support Barry Goldwater, but this man was not asked, nor any other delegate that would not support Barry Goldwater to leave. This is America, and we are a free people.
Where do the local Democrats, that is those that run on the Democratic ticket in the state, go from here?
Well, I don't know. I can't speak for the Democrats themselves, but let me say this. For those people that believe in a sound economy, they believe in the free system, the individual, states' rights, I ask those people to join the Republican Party. For those people that believe in the socialistic state, centralized government, I ask that they stay in the Democratic Party because I believe that they have a home there. But within the Republican Party, which is, in my opinion today, the Conservative Party, and I ask all conservatives to join the Republican Party.
Are you pleased with the choice of Hubert Humphrey as the vice presidential nominee?
Hubert Humphrey, in my opinion, is about as bad a selection as far as the people of Alabama is concerned that the Democratic Party could have chosen. Hubert Humphrey is a left-wing member of the Americans for Democratic Action. In fact, he was a founder. He's been a professional Southern hater since he has held political office.
The Alabama delegation is inviolate of the convention call. Now, this is not a new call. This is the same call that the convention has been called for, my understanding, since 1952. The very first paragraph of the convention call says that the electors should in good conscience be pledged to support the nominees of the party. But of course, Alabama's electors, as you know, are unpledged. So I went to the Credentials Committee asking them to seat the Alabama delegation because you cannot blame the delegates for what the electors had done or what the electors, which ones had been elected. Now, Alabama is one of 6 states and that elects both the delegates and the electors, and of course the only state that has an unpledged elector. So when they said Alabama is in violation and they accepted my argument that you cannot blame the delegates, then they said, how shall we correct it? The very next paragraph in the call says, no further assurances will be needed as to your loyalty unless a contest has been raised. So they simply said a contest has been raised. If these delegates will give us further assurances by signing the same oath that is required of the National Committee man and Committee woman, then they will not be in violation, they will be seated. And I attempted to get them to do it verbally, but they said they had to sign it, and when they did, then, as you know, most of them refused to sign the oath.
Well, based on what you saw and heard before you left Atlantic City for last night or late yesterday, what do you think will happen to Alabama's delegation?
Governor Lawrence, who of course is chairman of the Credentials Committee, stated in his press conference and to the delegation and to me that those that sign the oath that they will support the party nominee will be seated, and Alabama will operate with a partial delegation, 5, 6, or 7. They will not go outside of the ordinance and the delegates to fill in, and they will operate, as I say, with a partial delegation. They won't be allowed to throw the entire 38 votes, but if there are 7 there, or 6 there, or 5 there, then they would cast 7, 6, or 5 votes.
I understand that the challenge is based on what is spoken of as the call of the convention. The Democratic National Committee call of the convention states in paragraph 1, I'd like to read that explicitly. The Democratic National Committee asks that the electors be pledged formally or in good conscience to the election of these presidential and vice presidential nominees under the Democratic label and designation. And as I understand, the challenge will be made that we have not complied with the call of the convention because of the fact that our electors are not pledged formally or in good conscience to the nominees of the party.
Well, what will be your approach to this problem before the Credentials Committee tomorrow, Mr. Clark?
Charles, my approach is that these delegates that have been elected to represent the Democratic Party here in Alabama at the convention have absolutely no connection with the electors whatsoever. The delegates qualified with the proper officials. They ran in open primaries. They received the majority of the votes. Some of these delegates are loyalists and some are unpledged. They have nothing whatsoever to do with the electors. They ran in open primaries. They qualified. They did everything they possibly could under the law to be a delegate to this convention. Consequently, they should be allowed to sit at this convention.
Governor McKeithen of Louisiana said that his delegation would walk out, or at least he asked them to walk out if the Alabama delegation was not seated. Now, have you been in contact with Governor McKeithen or any of the other Southern governors about this?
Well, I have talked to many governors off and on, and of course Governor McKeithen took that action upon his own. And of course I knew about it and heard about it, and I'm very grateful for the fine statement made by the governor of Louisiana.
Governor, there is some late developments that the Mississippi delegation will be seated if they will sign the loyalty oath, with two of the Negro delegates being seated, I believe, as at-large alternates. What do you think about such a compromise as this?
Well, of course, I know nothing about it other than what you have just said about the so-called Mississippi Compromise. I would go along with the Mississippi delegation. Whatever they agreed to would be all right with me, and if they did not want this, agree with this, then I would stand with the delegation, for the regular delegation from Mississippi. This bill is going to construct 28 junior colleges and trade schools that will be in all sections of Alabama. And by the middle of next year, every young man and woman of both races will be within bus distance of a junior college or a trade school. This means that many children in the families of those whose incomes are middle and low income groups are going to have the opportunity to send their children to a college or to a trade school, whereas in the past it has been impossible for financial reasons to do so.
Governor Wallace, are you going to return to Atlantic City to the convention?
I'm not sure about that. At the present moment, I don't have any plans about the convention.
Well, Governor, how do you think the Alabama delegation has handled themselves so far?
Well, the Alabama delegation, the majority of the Alabama delegation have handled themselves well, and I agree with the actions that they have taken, and they were elected by the people, and of course they have a right to take any action they desire to take. They are not coerced. Now, they are by anyone. They're not controlled by anyone. They were not appointed by the governor of Alabama nor anyone else, and any action that they take, of course, is within their rights. But I do agree with the action taken by the majority of Alabama's delegation.
Governor, are you keeping in close touch with the delegation? Do you have any strings on the delegation?
I have no strings on the delegation at all. These gentlemen are all high type, and ladies are some of the finest people in this state. And I don't think anyone has any strings on them. I think that's one reason they made a fine delegation. Naturally, the governor's office has been in contact with every now and then with those in Atlantic City, because we are naturally interested.
Governor, would you like to see the Alabama delegation walk out of this convention?
I haven't ever said anything about the delegation walking out at all, and nobody has tried to encourage anyone to walk out. It's not a matter of walking out. It looks like they've been thrown out.
What about the Alabamians who are in Atlantic City and say they will take the seats of those who do walk out?
These people wanted to be delegates. They ought to have run for delegate in the first place if they are that interested in being delegate. But those who are there now were elected by the people of Alabama. And I don't feel that anyone has a right to be representing Alabama who was not elected by the people.
Yes, sir, they certainly did. And I have a photostatic copy of that pledge here that I'm going to take to the Credentials Committee, which states, if a candidate for elector, I agree that I will not cast my ballot in the Electoral College for the presidential or vice presidential nominees of the Republican Party. And my contention is that they have signed a pledge not to vote for the Republican Party. They have stated verbally they would vote for someone who would be sympathetic to or helpful to the South in their position of segregation. Last time, as you remember, some of them voted for Senator Byrd, who was a Democrat, and it is certainly presumed that if they vote this time, other than our vice presidential and presidential nominee, it would be for some Democrat. They have pledged they will not support the Republicans.